Okay, so let's make some flats using your new flat panel that you've assembled. So once you have everything, once you have your telescope pointing to the ceiling or outside pointing upwards, or it's nighttime, put your panel on, plug everything in, and then open up your, of course you have to connect your camera to your laptop, and then open up Nina. And when you do, it will look like, hold on a second there. Yeah, okay, like this. All right. So now we have to choose a camera, and if it's connected, and it probably will be, it should be in the list here. If not, then there's something maybe in the connection or the hub, or just keep moving things around until you have it, until it comes up in the list. If it's not in the list, it's definitely not connecting. But if you plug it directly into the hub, or even directly from the camera to the laptop, you should be able to see it here, because both you and I have 533s. And the connect button is right there. I'm just going to hover over it. This is just a scan for device in case it wasn't plugged in. And if you do plug it in, you can go scan again, make sure it's there, and then you can choose it from the list. So let's connect the camera for now. And once you do, this should come up. Success, camera connected. Okay, good. Now there's a lot going on here. Let's see if we can go in order. The cooler, hopefully you've plugged 12 volts to it using the 5 volt, 12 volt 5 amps into its into the socket of the camera. And as you can see, the sensor temperature is 26 Celsius. So this is in the living room here. I have it pointed towards the ceiling with the panel on top. So there's decisions to make before we even go anywhere with making flats, and that's going to be, you have to match some things. And in this case, we're going to start this year, like this spring, with -5. Okay, you see here I'm clicking down to -5. Okay, so you set the temperature at -5, and this says how long do you want me to take to reach -5 from +26? 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes? It's up to you there, but if you go too fast, like 1 minute, there could be problems with freezing the window, the chip window. So I usually go 3, 4. Most people go between 5 and 10 minutes, but for the sake of it, I guess we'll put it on. Yeah, we'll leave it on 4 minutes. All right. So you see, cooler is off, but once I click on this little snowflake, that should fire up the tech cooler, and you'll see the graph down here: sensor temperature, cooler power. So let's hit the snowflake and let's see what happens. All right. So it's starting at 25, or at least it's good. It says I'm going to go down to 25. That's the target. Right now I'm 26. So if you keep an eye on this a little bit, and you'll see your cooler power will start to go up slowly. Hopefully I'm actually plugged in. There you go, 1%. So this will keep going, 2%, and this will start dropping. We were at 26. It's probably gonna go like down to 25. Let's let that run, because this will take 4 minutes. Okay. While we're here, and we're here, we're gonna look at our gain. Hopefully you can see my mouse here. Gain value, which is how much amplification you want to put on each target, or how much. Yeah. Not necessarily how bright, but kind of how bright you want to make it. And the offset is getting away from a completely black sensor, and it's not a good thing to have it at 0. So I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to give you already some numbers that I've been working for the last 5 years, so you get an advantage of not having to guess all the time of what the gain values are. This camera at Unity, okay, is 100. What is Unity? That's another video altogether. Basically, every time a photon hits the pixel and it turns into 1 electron, that's 1 ADU. So to have it even 1-to-1, the gain is set at 100. If you turn the gain up, you just multiply not how much light is coming in, but the brightness of the light going to the ADC, which is the analog to digital converter inside the chip. But we don't care about that. All right, we just care about what the numbers are and how we can get to where we're going. So I suggest right off the bat, start with a gain of 101, because that's just above the value of Unity, and the offset of 200. Sorry, 20. Okay, there's another thing you can do, but we can't do it now because we're using the real driver and not the ASCOM driver, and later we'll talk about both. But if you were on the ASCOM right now, you could click on those 3 little gears, and you could choose what ZWO has already pre-programmed for you. And it's not a bad idea. But for tonight, we're going to just concentrate on getting the sense of making flats, the why, how, where, and who, and when. And it's important. So camera settings, 101 for gain, 20 for offset. And the speed limit on the USB is, if let's say you have a USB cables that are not that great, then you could drop that to 20. And if your USB ports are fast, or like the hub that I sold you, you can go up to like 80, because you have a value of anywhere between 40 and 100. So me, to be safe, because you're not in a rush, for us, we're using USB 3. You could leave it on 80. Sometimes I just put it on 60 just to be safe. So when you're transferring an image from the chip to your computer, 60 speed on USB is very reliable. 40 is slow and 80 is really fast. And 80, there's nothing wrong with using it, but I'm always precautious about everything. So we'll leave at 101 gain, offset will be 20, and our USB will be 60, just number 60. That's not, it's not a speed limit. It's just the controlling the voltage of the transfer between PC and camera. So we'll leave it at the USB limit of 60. Some are built in automatically. You can't really change it, but here Nina gives you opportunity, the option of going from 40 to 100. All right, let's go back up here. Back to the cooler. We are at 13 degrees. We're heading to -5 here, and we're using 32% of that 5 amps, 12 volts. So we still got a little ways to go still. So let's go down. I have a bit of I made an outline so that I try to keep things in order. Okay, so we talked about the gain value, we talked about the USB speed, we set the temperature at -5, we have to wait that for a little bit. Because you're leaving winter and you're going into spring, -5 is okay. As it gets warmer out, like April, May, June, we're probably going to bring this temperature target to -10. And the 10 is going to be all the way to the fall. It's -5 over the winter because it's already really cold outside. But -10 is when, on those warm days, the processor can get fairly hot. So -10 below ambient, it's a really good number. So we can go with -5 for now. Later on, we'll change it to -10. So how are we doing on the temperature? We're at 41%. We're pulling 41% draw from the power supply, and we are at 7 degrees, and we're heading for -5. While we're on this, sometimes in some of the older parts of Nina, older software of Nina, you could not take an image until the chip reached -5. So even if you wanted to fool around here and take a quick shot of the skies, you could not, because go back to equipment, back to camera. This has not reached -5 yet. We're at +5, but we're not at -5. So, but I think right now, if I'm going to bring this back down to, let's say, a 1-second exposure, and this is wrong. See the binning? We'll talk about binning later, not right now. 1 by 1 is the normal size of the chip. Okay, if you start talking about binning and stuff like that, we're going to be in here for 4 hours. So the gain, remember how it was 101? Now, in equipment and in camera, we set it here at 101. But if you want to experiment sometimes, whatever you do here, 101, if you put this at 300, this image coming out will be 300. Like the gain will be at 300. So I try to make sure that here it's at 101. In the equipment under camera, which is the very top one, is also set at 101. And later we're going to look at the sequence, which is, you have to make a sequence during the night, like, 50 times 1 minute or whatever. Make sure that the gain down here, hopefully you can see my mouse, is also 101, and the offset is 20. So all 3 parts match. The imaging section, see, it says down here, image, statistics, image. So gain's at 101, equipment is at 101. How are we doing on the cooler? 54%, and we're just hitting 0. So we're almost there to get started for that part. Hold on a second. Okay. So we're almost there. So I guess for now, because we're not actually going to start making flats, but we can so I'm just looking at my list here. Let's go to imaging, and as you can see here, exposure time is 1 second, and we're at game 101. Okay, let's just push this. This is a shutter. It says start exposures. Let's just see what a 1 second exposure looks like. And I've got the panels already turned on, but I turned it way down. So let's see what it looks like for a 1 second exposure. Okay, not bad. Now, here there's zoom in, zoom out, make it the actual size of the screen, which is what we want actually. And 1:1 is its full size, which it is right now. But let's go fill the size. There we go. So this is your first flat, not your first flat you're going to save, but it's your first flat image. And for your first one might be interesting. It may be, if you got all the spacing right, like I showed you on the camera, and the focus is very close, hopefully it is, you should see this. You should see some darker outer ring, this black here, black there, which is vignette. In other words, the cone of light is smaller than the actual sensor, so this is what vignette comes from. And you might see a donut here, donut down there, another one here. For the heck of it, I'm just going to shut off the, make it black and white. Let's take one more shot. Or mono. It's not really black and white. Let's see if it's okay. Now see how they all disappeared. Don't. I'm under options. See, it says image options. Always leave it to debayer or make it color, and unlink stretch. So on, and annotate is. We won't talk about that right now. Back to image. One more 1 second exposure. Click. That's your shutter. Let's look and see if we have those donuts again. Okay, there they are. So this is a pretty good, pretty good test, just to see if the camera's working, to see how much vignette. Is there any dust bunnies on there? There might be. When you took the camera apart and you started putting the M48 extensions on, when you put the nose cone from the DSLR, when you were doing that, you might have had dust all over this, and dust is bad. We are against dust. We do not want dust. This is why I bought a pack of little special lens camera wipers, and I'll take a picture one day and I'll show you what they look like. They're not expensive. I think it was Amazon. But if you carefully wipe the window, you don't have to fight with these. These donuts are going to show up. They're going to show up on your galaxy, on your nebula, on your stars. We don't want that. That's the point of flats, is to remove anything that's obstructive, that should not be there. Okay, so how are we doing temperature wise? Equipment. Okay, we're at 62%, holding at 62%, and it was shooting for -5, and it's at -5.4. So we're good. And you can see the line here. The yellow stands for the cooler power, which is fairly high, about 61%. And the green bar went from 0 to -5. Okay, go back to imaging. All right. Just take my list. Just keep checking my list here for a minute. Okay. So section 2. Let's go to statistics. That's the tab down here. See how we have image, stats, history, plate solver, autofocus, which we shouldn't have to deal with that. So from image, the most important is imaging and statistics. This is the window we're always looking at to see where our histogram is. This tells us if we're at 50%, 40, 30, or 20% of our maximum value of ADU, which is 65,000, by the way. And I'll show you that in a minute. I will prove that in a minute. So up here, we have the width and height of the camera, 3008 pixels by 3008. That's our 533. We have a mean value. This shot at 1 second with a gain of 101, we have a mean of 36,000. This is what it says. Let's take another one, make sure that doesn't look like it's, oh, sorry, 3600. Yeah, it does look like 3600. I'm sorry. I thought that was 36,000. Okay, so 3,498. That's the mean value. In other words, of the entire image, not just of the middle or the outer. Because see how it's dark on the outer edge? And it's bright in the center? Back to statistics. So the median is 3,000, but the mean value, the overall average, is 3,498. Now let's get into this whole rigmarole of percentage of what creates a good flat image for taking out the donuts and the vignette on your images, right? You're imaging all night. You got you stack 200 images. you can count that these donuts are going to be 200 times brighter, blacker. We don't want that. So let's continue with what these numbers are very important. I want you to learn them, and I'm teaching you as we go along a little bit. So always look at the mean value for where this histogram is going to be. 50%. Even in my videos on YouTube, they say 50%, but I talk about it later that it's not. It won't be 50%, because if it is, you can guarantee you that they're not going to work. They're going to overcorrect. And I'm going to change this from 1 second to 5 seconds and show you how this mean value goes from 3,000 almost up to 65. So let's go 5 seconds, as you can see down here. 2, 3, 4, 5. If we go here, I'll just show you the image. Oh, now the donuts are really sticking out a mile. There's 3 of them now, really bright ones, and a 4th one right about here. Just have a quick look here. What's going on? Okay, so back to standard size. Lots of vignette, lots of. I can clean those dust bunnies so they're never going to be there again. And that would be great. Every time you change the camera, like every time you clean something up, or sometimes you move the camera around, these donuts, these little dust particles on the glass, if they move over, your flats are no longer any good. You'll be adding dust bunnies to the next pictures. So if you don't move the camera that much around, or if you don't pull it out and put it back in, and these things don't move around a lot, these flats will work for as long as they don't move. And you know, because every night you take pictures, they show up. Now let's go back to statistics. I took 5-second exposure, and of course I was playing with the dimmer. Remember the dimmer that brings your panel light up and down? I have it about on 15% right now. And look at the value. It's 14,717. Okay. I know I'm going around in circles a lot, but we have to understand this 50%. To you, if you looked at this right now, let's say that this line right here is 50% and way over here is 100%. Then if you're shooting between 25 and 30%, this looks just about right. But I don't go by, I can see the histogram, but I don't go by the histogram. I want to go by the mean value. And we're always going to make more than one set of flats. Why? Because, trust me, they don't work right off the bat. Sometimes you wish, man, I made a bunch of flats yesterday at, 20,000 ADU, the mean value, 20,000 instead of 14. And I went through it and I processed them in an AstroPixel processor, and guess what? These dark motes, these dark grayish rings, brownish rings, turned out white. So now I'm overcorrected. I've overcorrected. And this black stuff, instead of being neutral, like, let me show you what neutral would look like. There. If this was the standard frame, see how the black's gone? Well, it's only gone because I made the picture bigger. But I mean, this would be a neutral image, a little bit more. Okay? All we'd have to deal with is this big donut. That would go away. But in the event that you take, 30 times 20,000 ADU up here, and they don't work, wouldn't it have been nice if you planned ahead and you got 3 sets, like let's say 24,000, 18,000, and let's say 12,500? Why not have 3 sets ready? 3 master flats, so that at least you don't have to set up everything and put everything back together, because that takes a lot of time. But you're already there, and the box is on the camera right now, and you've got the ability to create more than one set by using the sequencer, which I'm going to show you in a minute. We're not there. Like I said, it's going to be a long video. All right, or I could break it down in another part tomorrow night, but let's just keep moving. Okay, so without touching, the 5 seconds down here, if I leave the 5 seconds where it is, and I just turn up the light on the telescope, my flat. Let's take another one. All I didn't change 5 seconds, but I just made my light brighter. Let's see what happens. See if it jumps up. Wow, big time. Now the mean value is 28,241, which is almost 50%, because what's 50% of 65,000? See the max here? 65,532. You don't have to be a mathematician. 50% of 35,000, 65,000 roughly is 32. Half of 64 is 32, 32,500. That would be 50%. We don't want that. You're saying, yeah, but look at Mitch. It says 28,000, but this is past 50%. It's almost like 50. It's almost like 60%. True, but look at these 2 in the back. Remember, I said it's the average of all 3. What do these lines represent? Well, this tall one usually is green, because remember, R, G, B, R for red, G for green, B for blue. There's always two covers, two Bayer matrices that are green, and there's only one blue and one red. So this has a higher value. So this is probably green, more than likely. This could be blue, and the very one on the very back could be red. It doesn't matter. It's just this is a display of what the camera is seeing, and what it's seeing is this right here. As you increase and decrease the light, all this intensity changes. Okay, so we're at 28,000. To me, that's too high. But at 5 seconds, it's also too long of an exposure. So here's key. Key is always leave this at 1 second. And let's take another one. Remember, I didn't change the values now on the dial, you know, the LED dimmer. I didn't touch the dimmer. I leave the dimmer where it is. I don't know what it's going to happen, but at least I can dim down or dim up. Let's try a 1 second exposure with the brightness of the dimmer right now. Let's see what we got for mean value. Okay, 6,100. That's not enough. We want to make some that are 24. That's a bit high. Let's say 20,000, something around 18,000, and maybe something as low as 12. Like, remember, I want 3 sets of different brightnesses. Okay, so you'll say, okay, so you want 1 second exposures, but you're nowhere near 18,500. True. So what do? I carefully turn up the dial on my LED panel. You know, the man, I got no brains. The dimmer dial. So let's take another shot. I just turned it up a bit. Every time I turn it up, this number should go even higher. Okay, so I'm 8,200. Okay, let's turn it up a little bit more. I mean, a little bit is like a tenth of a 1/50th of a turn. You'll know. You should play with this. You should actually see 9,100. It wants me to turn up the knob some more, from very, very dim to a little bit brighter. Boy, that's pretty bright. I can look at it I'm looking at it with my eyes, and that's pretty bright. See, let's hit it. Let's try it. Let's see what we got now. 10,000. Let's get some more. We want at least 20, like 20,000. Okay, turn it up. Always leave the gain at 100. Second, 1 second exposure. 11,000. Boy, she's stubborn tonight, isn't she? Okay, let's try that. If it happens that I can't go long enough, if I cannot reach 20,000 and my dimmer is getting higher and higher, that means maybe 2 t-shirts were too much. Maybe I could just use 1. It's nice to be able to use just the 1 or the 2 because you have control with that dimmer switch. Now, I have on my notes here to talk about another light source. Well, what other light source could we use? Well, let's say you're outside and it's 7 o'clock in the morning and you've done your whole night's imaging, you've done your darks, you've done your lights, but you have no flats or dark flats. We'll talk about that in a minute, which is kind of a bias frame. So why not shoot, like a lot of people, when I say a lot of time, it's probably in the thousands and thousands. They put their t-shirt on, and as the sun's coming up, they let the sun become the light source. So with that though, what happens when as the sun's coming up, man, this ADU is changing every fraction of a second. It starts out at 20, then all of a sudden it's 21, then it's 22,000, 23,000, and it doesn't look to your eyes like the sun's actually coming up that fast. It isn't really coming up that fast, but the camera is so sensitive that it'll pick up fractions of light coming through the t-shirts. And flats cannot vary. If you're doing 30 flats and you start at 20,000, you're probably going to end up at 33. That can't be right. You cannot have a changing mean value. I mean, it's okay to change between, let's say you're at 12,500. You can go 12,200 or 12,800. Like, you can give it a couple of 300 extras or less, but not in the thousands, because your flats will not be average. You'll have a really faint one, you'll have a bunch of bright ones. This is what's nice about the light panel that you and I built. We have control. The dimmer switch, the dial. We can dial it down, we can dial it up. Now watch, this is 12,393. I'm not going to touch nothing. I'm just going to take another picture, and just to show you how light can vary, even from a power supply. Now I'm at 12,514. Let's take another one. Let's back up to your mean value. Again, I really hope you can see my mouse. 12,252. This is acceptable because it's always in the 12,000, 2, 3, 400. 12,277. Excellent. One more. Remember, these are just tests. 12,325. So I like this. The light is doing what the light's supposed to do. The flat box is working great. While we're here, I want to bring up something, a point. about the statistics, how really nice this is and how important this is. You notice here how it says stars 1? Well, it can't be star 1 because I'm in the house. But sometimes it picks up one warm pixel and it thinks it's a star. It marks it as 1. But, and this is important. This is important because it's really valuable information. Let's say you're outside and you're shooting whatever, a galaxy, you know, M65 or Sunflower Galaxy or the Whirlpool Galaxy, and you see it shows 500 stars. Every time you shoot something, it's 500 stars, 505, 499, 520. There's always variations because the sky is not steady. If this number drops, let's say you're at 500, all of a sudden it says 350, I guarantee you run outside and look, there's clouds going by, which is a good thing. Because just by looking at the star amount, like how many stars there are, it tells you how good the skies are. If the number starts going up from 500 to 525, 550, then the skies are getting more steady from the jet stream, or the sky is getting darker, so more stars are coming in. Now, here's the thing. If you come here and you focus by hand using your batten-off mask, okay, and then you take the mask off, of course, and you take a couple of shots, and it says, okay, 500 stars. If the camera loses focus, if it backs out by 2 millimeters or goes in by 2 millimeters or whatever, I guarantee the stars that are supposed to be 500 stars here around your galaxy will drop. Because even tiny stars, if you defocus accidentally or the camera slides out, you're going to drop by 100 stars, even 200 stars. And is that a good thing? No. But the fact that you know there was a star drop is a good thing. You better go back and check, make sure your focusing knob hasn't slipped or the bottom's not tight enough. So when you focus and you tighten it, and if it says 500, it should stay 500 and whatever. I mean, sometimes they might say 1500. If you're shooting at the Milky Way, it might say 2,735 stars. That's great. That just means, you know, you have like 2,500 stars here. What I'm trying to teach you is the number of stars is a big indicator of how clear it is, how steady the night is, or how good your focus is, or how bad it's starting to get. Now, along with the number of stars, there's also HFR. That stands for, I swear I need a new brain. So this is the flux radius. The flux, like it's like full wave half maximum, half max. So this is the half flux radius. I'm not going to go into it, too complicated, but basically, it's if this is the top of the star, which is at the point, and if this is the bottom of the star, where it's really wide, well, about halfway, that's the width, 3.8 half flux radius. What does this mean, 3.8? Well, the skies anywhere around the world are never 1.0. That means a perfect sky that does, you know, twinkle, twinkle, little star. You don't want that. That's against you. But stars on a clear night where the wind or the jet stream is not, you know, there's no cold front coming in, or a cold front's gone out, has come in and it's gone away, or a warm front coming in, it affects the size of the stars. Even in focus, this HFR could run between 2 and 4, even 5. As long as the HFR is the lowest possible, that means your focus is the best. Without the batten-off mask, of course, because that's just to get you started on a bright star. So later, when you go to the autofocusing tab, let me see if I can bring you something else up here. I've got a bunch of them, I think, somewhere. Okay, that's bad. I don't think I have any good ones. Yeah, that's not too bad. Okay, so here I'm going to have to do a video on autofocusing. This is besides flats being a pain, autofocusing is even harder. But as you can see here, I got an HFR 335. It started very high, HFR of 5.5, went down to the lowest point, it was like 3.6, and then went all the way up to 7.5. This is the telescope going, or the camera going in, getting a perfect focus, going back out, and saying, you know what? The average here is at the lowest point is right down here, and that's where it backs up to whatever the position is, 24,418. Okay, these things, back to statistics. This is your helper. Use the star. I mean, don't use it, can't do nothing with it, but in the sense that learn it, look at it. You can use it. It's very, very indicative of what your night's like. Same with HFR. If it starts to go up, something's going on. If your half flux radius means your stars are getting fatter and you start to drop stars, you are out of focus. And that's important to know. Now, about what did I want to mention? It was really, let me just check my thing. Yeah, we're talking about ADU and the values and how we can set them or not set them. All right. Let's quit. Okay. All right, so let's before, I guess we might as well try to find the right amount. So the mean is 12. That's not enough. We want to make a bunch of 18. So I'm going to turn the light up. Since the camera's already cold, I don't want to waste any time. Take a shot. I have my flashlight here. I'm in the dark. What do we got? 13.7? Not enough. Okay, let's try again. If this doesn't get brighter, if it stays around 14, and right now my dial is max. Yep, see, that's not going to be enough. I've got my dial at 100%. My light's as bright as it can go, and all I'm getting is 15, and I want 18. So what can we do? I mean, next to changing the gain value, which I don't want, I want to leave the game at unity. Why? Because our light frames will be at gain 101. Our darks will be at gain 101. Our flats should be at gain 101, and our dark flats. So there is something we can do, since I've got my light as bright as it can go. I don't know what's going on tonight. Last night I barely turned it up and I was at 25,000. But here's what we're going to do. You can use 1 second, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3. There's nothing wrong with that. Use the time, use your seconds or your exposure time to reach what you want. I'd rather it be a little bit higher so I can bring the light down. Right now my light is maxed out, and this histogram is low. It's like right down to about, well, 15%. Wait a second. 2 seconds should make a lot more. Should double this. At least go to 25. Then I can lower the light down a bit. 34. Right. Exactly what we don't want. So 34,000 is past 50%. And you can tell here by this bar is way too far. So let's try to bring the dimmer switch down, the dimmer dial. And let's see if I can bring this thing here that's almost 70% down to the center. The center does not represent 50 because it takes the value of all 3 spikes, not just the one. It averages that out. So let's see if I can dim it down a bit. Dumb it down a bit. All right, let's take another 2 second shot. Remember, we're shooting 34,000 is too much. Let's go down to, let's try to hit 20. 20,749. See how the center, this is center, but these two are a little bit further back. Let's have a look and see what it looks like. Take a shot. Beautiful. When you see motes and good vignette, that's pretty indicative of a fairly good flat. But don't go by your eyes, because your eyes can deceive you. Go by the numbers. So we have 20,959. Guess what? Those, at 2 seconds, they would work. All right, so how do we, let's say this is going to be our first set. I'm just going to check my list there. Okay, first, before we do that, because we're still in the experimental and teaching stage, statistics. See the number of stars here? It would say, we're always using 500 as an example. Okay, let's say there's 500 stars. Now, let's go to options. And I know this is frightening. There's like, oh, there's stuff all over the place and hundreds of words and sentences. Ignore all that. Ignore sequences, image options for now. Meridian flips. Boy, if you have meridian flips, that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be a fun video. I don't do flips, and I'll tell you why. You may have to, because you have, depending on where you are, what part of the town you're at, or where your telescope's pointing. All right. The thing that were the most important that I really want to show you here is this image file path. It has, this is basically what the image would look like if you took one picture. If you took one picture, see the patterns down here. So image type, it's a light frame. Date and time, 2016, January 1st. It's not, but it's just an example. Filter, L for luminance. In your case, you don't have filters. You're not using a filter wheel or any filter. So, but this is luminance, means, you know, just straight up RGB. Target name, M33. That big galaxy there just underneath M31. What else we got? Gain value. Here it says gains at 1600. Of course, yours is going to be 101. Offset up here. See offset? Oh, I can't do that. It won't let me do that. I can't highlight it. Offset would be 20, which would be right here. Binning 1 by 1. Let's go back to image. See here? It says binning 1 by 1. All right, 1 by 1. Back to options. What's after the binning? Sensor temperature. Here it shows minus 15. Yours will be minus 5. There's a reason why I'm breaking all this down, having to do with the flats and stuff like that, and your HFR. Next, HFR, and it is 3.25. That's the size of all 500 stars. When it looks at each dot, the big stars and the small star, and averages them out, it's 3.25 arc seconds per pixel. That's a big topic. Star count, 3,294. This is what we're going to talk about in a minute. Exposure, 10 seconds, and frame number 0001. Okay, good. Here's the thing. when you take, let's say you take 100 pictures, 100 images during the night, the HFR 3.25, that'll change over the whole night because each picture is always a little bit, you want it to be fairly stable, but I think it'll go up and down. And the stars, 3,294, it might be 3,300, 3,100. Why do we care? Remember what I said about the star count? When it starts to go down, something's going on in the sky. I mean down a lot, not just down a little bit. If you drop 150 stars, something's going on up there. A little haze going by, or I don't know, a little bit of clouds, or full moon will affect it. Full moon compared to no moon at all, you'll have more stars on a dark sky, right? So that's common sense. That's good. Okay, so here's the thing. Remember in PixInsight, you go and use the subframe selector? Well, what does it really do? The subframe selector, it looks for the most amount of stars in that frame, in this case 3,294 stars, and the lowest HFR. But because this is going to be included in, I don't know if I could do this as an experiment right now. Just search. Yeah, I'll explain to you what's going on, what all this is about. Go back. I'm going to make a brand new folder. I'm going to click on Nina, say make folder, and just call it Andy test. Okay, we're just going to call it Andy test. Okay, so I'm just going to select it. Just go back to your name, new folder, Andy test, and say okay. There. So the image path will be see me, Astro Dave, which is just the name of the computer. There's no Dave here. Documents Nina Andy's test. Whatever I do here will end up here. Let's see if we can test that. Image, save. Of course, it'll go under snapshot. Take one shot. Boom. Remember 20,000. Let's see if it's going to take it 20,000 again. Anywhere between 20 and 21. Okay, 21, 421. Now let's go to the directory. Let's back out of here. Let's see. We are at users, documents, Nina, Andy's test, snapshot, and there it is. Okay. So in here we'll have the time, and there's no target, there's none of that because we haven't chosen any, we're just doing flats, right? Gain, look at the gain, 101. Look at your offset, 20. Binning, 1 by 1. Minus 5 degrees. The rest, there's just no values, can't put one in. Like there's no stars, and there's no HFR, and this is frame number 0000, and probably the next one would be 1. So the naming convention, if let's say you had 100 frames here, just glancing quickly down, you could find the one that's the lowest HFR, in other words, the tightest stars, the most sharp, right? I mean, if you have an HFR that says 3 or 5, the other one says 3, that's the best one. If they're really, really all close, then you use the lowest number for HFR and how many stars. I mean, if it's 500, 500, 500, all of a sudden it drops to 333, 450, 450, all of a sudden there's one that says 725, that's the best frame. Why? It must be the cleanest, the clearest, and the darkest. Like your signal to noise ratio would be high. Why? Because there's so many stars. You'll learn that. But these are tricks that took me years to learn. I'm passing it on for free. We'll talk about that again when you do a real night of imaging. You'll notice that you can go by star count to pick your best reference frame. In APP, it's even easier than that. It does it. It goes through all the frames one by one. It analyzes all the stars, the background, its signal to noise ratio. It does all that for you. And it chooses it for you. Like PixInsight, at that point, it's not really needed. Only one reason I use PixInsight, blink. I mean, this is a big jet that goes through my screen out of 100. Well, now I'm down to 99. And if a cloud went by for 2-3 minutes and it wrecked 4 of my frames, well, now I'm down to 96 frames. Things like that. You can delete them, you can remove them, and keep the good ones. Is there a blink in APP? No. Is there a way to figure out a blink? Yes and no. We'll go over that when I do a video on AstroPixel processor. Okay, so let's go to, now that we have this kind of set up, 21,000, let's take another one. It says 21,000 there, but let's see if we're still at 21. 22,300. Take another one. Pay attention, make sure your light's not flickering. 22,100. See, to me, it's getting too high. I said I wanted this around between 18 and 20. That is thousands. I'm going to drop the light down a bit. Just a smidgen. Take another one. I really like 18,500. I'm sorry, it's just a number that I love. In fact, it doesn't even matter what 16.8. Well, bring it up a little. And it's really, really touchy. I mean, touchy. The camera's touchy. You barely see the light move with your eye when you look at the panel, but man, oh man, does it change when you just touch the dial. Okay, 16, getting closer, a little bit more. Hope I didn't bump that. Take another one. We have to pause in a minute. What do we got? Still got 21. Boy, oh boy, I told you it would jump. Okay, brought it down some more. It's an experiment. Once you get it right, you know, you're good for the night. Imagine doing this with the sun going down or coming up. That would never work. Okay, 19.9. Man, I'm almost there. That dial is really, really, really touchy, so let's see if I got it closer now. Anything, 18.6. Man, that's perfect. And while you're looking at the 18,618, it won't stay there, but the mean is 18,600. Look at where the histograms are. Green, probably around 40, but man, red and blue are probably in the 21%. Again, it doesn't matter, but if you visualize this, you'll know that this is right. So we're at 2 seconds. Gain 101. Mean 18,618. All right? Ignore the rest because we're not shooting, you know, galaxies. We're just doing flats. And how does it look visually? Well, here it is. Again, they almost look all the same, but they sure don't end up like that when you try to subtract them or divide them from the light frames. Okay, so you say, okay, we have this. We have our good number of 18.6. It's going to vary a little bit, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. Let's go to this, like, how do we take them now? Like, just can't sit here and keep pushing that button all the time. I'm going to shut off the save button because now we're going to go to the sequencer. The sequencer is where you make a sequence of so many, you know, so many frames. So let's look at just this line right here. We have progress. It's going to tell you how many you've done and how many you've got left to go. Total. Well, how many flats do we want? Or how much do we need? I said minimum 30. So you're going to do 30 individual flats at how many seconds? Well, I'll go back to your imaging. It said 2 seconds. And we got 18,000 out of 2 seconds. So go back to your sequencer. Go to time. Go 1, 2. So we have 2 seconds, 30 of them. And no, they're not light frames. The type of light frame, it's not the type of frame. Double click here. They are flats. When you make them like this, it will actually call them flats in here, wherever you are, you know, wherever you're testing. All right. It'll actually make a directory called, probably called flats inside Andy, if that's what I chose. How do you make them go there? Options, file path, ... right here. I'm going as slow as I can, but you can always stop it, rewind it a few seconds. Click on here, and in the list it says documents, Nina, Andy test. You can choose wherever you want to put them. I just happen to put them in documents. Normally, I never put them there. I put them right on the desktop, so I don't have to chase after them. But for now, it's under Andy test. Okay, so we got the right path, and the path is really important. So is all this the path file names. Like we call this a naming convention. Definitely a naming convention. So back to image for a moment. I'm going to take one more shot and see if this is how much this is going to fluctuate from 18.6. I don't care if it's 17. Now see 1903. Take another one. I don't mind 1903, but we're going to make 2 sets tonight. 18.9. See, so you see how it bounces from 200-300 ADUs? That's okay. We don't want to change by thousands, but 300 to 500 is okay. Why? Because APP will average them out to make it whatever it needs to be for the speed, 2 seconds, and our mean value, 18,000 ADU, analog to digital units. Analog is this light's coming from the galaxy. When it hits a pixel and hits the bottom, there's a little receptor there. It turns it to a digital signal, electrical, like 1 electron, and that goes down to the end of the processor and goes, I've collected 1 photon of light, and that's 1 ADU. Here you have 18,982 overall. Pretty sure that's overall the entire image. Okay, back to our sequence. We have 0 of 30. We're going to collect 30 frames. They're going to be 2 seconds each. They are going to be flats. The binning, 1 by 1. Since your lights are 1 by 1, your darks are going to be 1 by 1. You want your flats to be 1 by 1, and there's no dithering, but the gain is 101. It matches, and the offset's 20. Go to equipment, go to camera. The gain is 101. Offset's 20. So we know that this is all matching. We're still holding, by the way, at perfect -5 degrees. Let's go back to sequence. So we have everything we want here to create the first set of flats, but we don't have a name. So up here, it depends how you're going to write this. Me, like it could be like, I don't know, M31 flats, depending on what your target name is, like whatever galaxy, nebula, they all have like M27, M13. But I just go FLT. But then I go underscore, okay, here's the important part, 18, let's say, 0.5K. I know they're not 18.5K, but I give them that designation. You see, they're 18.9. And you cannot get it perfect, because every time you touch that dial by a tenth of, like a 1/100th of a turn, the ADUs go up by 500. It's really touchy, really hair trigger touchy. So at least now we have a name. FLT, by the way, is flat. 18,500 is our ADU, and we dialed it in, right? We decided how much ADUs we wanted up here for 2 seconds. I can turn it down and make it down to 10,000. I can crank it up and make it up to 40,000, but we don't want that. We want from 28% to 30%, and that looks pretty good. If you average those 3 dots, these 3 histogram peaks would be right about here at the 28% mark, which is what we want to start with, because remember, we're going to make more than one set. Okay, if you got everything right and the camera's going and you're cooled down and you chose your 2-second exposures, you want 30 of them, and they're going to be called flats, and they're going to go into this folder right here. See, it says Documents, Nina, Andy Tests. I can even actually open it and just minimize it for now. Let's go back to image, and I'm going to hit the big green button down here that says Active Sequence Detail. Estimated finish time 11:44 or 10:44, because it's 10:43. So it's only going to take about a minute. Well, they're only 2 seconds. There's only 30. That's a minute. Okay, so let's go to image. When I hit this arrow down here, it's going to start taking flats after 2 seconds each, and it's going to take 30 of them. And if you see my cursor, I'm going to bring it right down here. There's a big open green space. Watch what happens when I hit go. Now, it may ask me all kinds of questions, and if it does, I'll answer what's not happening. It may say your telescope's not connected, like your Celestron, don't need it, or you forgot to turn on PhD, I don't need it. So little silly things like that, and if it is, it's because something's checkmarked up here, like cool camera first, unpark the mount, do a flip, warm up the camera. We'll go through all that together. Like for example, salute at the target, center the target, rotate the camera, forget that, it's a $5,000 little toy, and then start guiding. These things will all be on later. That's another video. Back to imaging, hit that big green arrow on the bottom that says start. Ready? Go. If there's something wrong, it'll tell us. All right. See what it says here? 1 of 30. Now we're at 2 of 30. And they're all looking almost identical. This is exactly what we wanted. While this is running, we'll let this run. We're at 5 of 30. Let's go see. Flats. Look at that. We got a whole bunch of flats going here at 18,500. They're not exactly 18,500, but that's what we want. That's how we want to do it for now. So we keep that running. If you can go check your statistics, see 18.3, 18.5, 18.9, 18.4. This is beautiful. I love the fact that we control the light via the LED, the variable switch, the dial indicator, if you want to call it, to control the light source where it's always constant to a really good degree. Day flats, sky flats, whatever they want to call them. I did it for years and years and years, and I just wanted to throw stuff over the balcony because it's so frustrating. These just kept on moving really badly to much of a high degree. Like we have 19 now. It was 18.5, and that's okay. A little bit of creep is okay. It's back down to 18.7. It's just because the electricity doesn't stay put. It moves around a bit. You don't see it, but boy, the camera sure picks it up. Okay, so, and the other thing is I mentioned in the other video, which kind of got erased, is that this cost us what, $150 to build, maybe, like 65 plus the 12 plus the cables plus the tips, $100, and the flat man is $900 Canadian or 700 US. Spica flat is what, $349 or $450. But a little ingenuity and a little help, and not only you save a bunch of money, but when you do proper flats, and we'll make more than one set tonight, we'll make a couple of sets. Look at the big advantage of saving a pile of money and getting the same results. Like, oh man, I could have said, put some t-shirt on and put elastic bands on that. And if the light's too bright, put some paper. Printing paper from a printer. There's 8.5 by 11. I used to put 1 sheet, 5 sheets, 10 sheets, 12 sheets of paper to bring the what? Well, the sun is bright. So you're bringing it down, down, down. It doesn't matter. It's a disaster. I had pieces of paper flying all over the place. The wind would catch it. Oh my goodness, I've had enough. So after 40 years, I just, you know what? I'm going to build my own. I'm going to figure it out. electroluminescent panel for 40-50 bucks. Get some plexiglass for another $35, and blah blah blah. You know the whole story. And it's funny. It really is funny. But it's not funny when you're outside trying to do this and there's a breeze and you're already frustrated and it was a long night. You've been up all night and you're tired. So I'm glad. I'm glad that you have someone to serve you information that took me 15 years to learn on my own. Nobody taught me anything. And I think some of my students that I've had, some really appreciate it and others go, meh. Okay, you can go meh. But if I say figure it out on your own, you'll come back in 6 months and go, I wish I would have listened because I wasted so many clear nights and I didn't get anything accomplished. We don't want that. I want you to be happy. I want you to be happy with your gear. I want you to be happy with these videos. Because it saves so much time. Having somebody show you something and go through it and break it down very slowly. Let's go look at our folder. What do we got? Oh wow, we got a bunch of flats. All right, let's go down. So at the bottom it says 30 items. Good. And it shows 2 seconds from frame. Let's see if I can just reset this here. It says 30 to 59, so 30 to 60. I don't know why the numbers changed. Shouldn't have, but anyways, at least we know we have 30 frames. Date, time, FLT stands for flats, 18,500 ADU, very close to what we had. We had some 19.1s, some 18.9s, 18.7s. It's okay. It's a designation. We know it's in the 18.5 category. Yeah. Gain 101, offset 21, 20, and binning 1 by 1, and -4. Electricity is electricity. It says we set it for -5, but 4.8. See here, 4.9. And if you move this over a bit, and look at my pointer, I'm over here. See how it shows -5? But for a little bit there, we dropped a little bit of voltage. That's okay. That's great. As long as it's like that all night, you're good. You wouldn't want flats that are +16 and the next one's like -3. You don't want that kind of a change. It's too the values are way too far apart, and APP doesn't like that. And PixInsight's worse. He goes, nope, I'm not doing anything. There's too much difference in the value. In fact, the values of the darks or flats or lights don't match. So I'm not stacking it. Well, if you want to cry a river, go ahead, because APP doesn't question you. At least not as not to the point where it won't even start. PixInsight sometimes, I swear to goodness. Anyways, I've backed off a lot from that, from $400 to 79 bucks. I'll stick with APP, and I use my PixInsight for final touches. We'll talk about that later. I'm not saying PixInsight is bad. It's fantastic where it's needed at the very, very end of your work. For now, APP will be incredible, especially if you've never done this before. You'll get some fantastic results. I have, and I always use more than one program. So let's keep going. So what can we do now? Well, this is our set. Let's go back to imaging, because remember I said we have some 18s, but I would like to have some even lower. Like let's try 12 or 14. Well, how do you change that? Well, now at this point, and I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I think if we do here, oh boy, don't change that. Here's what's going to happen. I'm glad I took notes here. Let me just check my notes. If you okay, check exposures, values, ADUK, back to sequencers, detection. Sorry, I'm just talking to myself. Make flat folders in Nina. Okay, we're very, very close to the end. Don't change the exposure time to adjust the mean value of 18,000 down to 14. Why? Because if you change this exposure time, follow along here, in the sequencer, you're going to do plus. Hopefully you can see my cursor down here. Plus. See how it added a second set? And they're 2 seconds and 2 seconds? No, they're not. Now, you didn't, but I'm just saying, now if you go 1.5 seconds, you know what's going to happen? Sorry, I'm going to reset this. What's going to happen here? And I'll turn this off because you already did these. If you put this to 1.5, later, when you go do dark flats, guess what? You're going to need dark flats of 2 seconds and of 1.5. And I don't want you to do that. Why should you confuse yourself or get confused? We don't want that. We literally want this to stay 2.0. The way around that, it's not really around it. Let's go back to our imaging. Let's go back to our mean value. You want to drop this, but don't change the exposure time, because this is simplistic and it makes life easier for you. Instead, we're going to grab the dial on the LED dimmer, And that's the way we're going to drop the 18 down to 14. Okay, let's try it. I'm going to drop it down a little bit. See? Let's see if I did turn it down, so let's see by how much. I can't tell, but the camera knows. 17, not enough. Bring it down some more. If you're hearing the clicking, it's because I'm turning my flashlight on. Try again. I'm going to go right down to like 14, even 12, 15. That's getting a little bit more. Let's darken it some more. Turn the dimmer down towards the off position. Take another shot. You know, this might seem boring, but to me, I love this. This is almost more fun than imaging. 13.7. Because, you know, you're putting a whole bunch of things together. Hundreds and hundreds of different files from different categories, lights, darks, flats, and dark flats, and you put it together for an image. That's got to be exciting. It is to me. I mean, why? You think, oh, I would have quit 25 years ago if I hated this. You don't. You get excited. And sometimes, in the first few months, nothing works. But you keep going at it until you... And some people, when they're properly taught, the gear's good. First night out, they get great, fantastic images. They're so excited. Listen to me. Don't I sound excited? Of course. Okay, I might have turned it too low now. Let's try it. Probably a 10. The dial is so sensitive. You can just barely move it. Yeah, 9500. Up a bit. I literally mean a bit. Like 1 millimeter brighter on the dimmer switch. Dimmer dial. 11.3. Oh, a little bit more. For the heck of it, I'm not going to stop exactly at 12 or 12.5 because this is just a demonstration and we're out of time. There's only 5 minutes left. Okay, 13.4. So we had 18.5. Now we have 13.4. Look at how far down towards the left we've gone, which is good. We don't want to be at 50%. And these, to look at them, really doesn't look any different because your eyes can't, even though you see the donuts and you have to see them, the vignette, it's always there. It's so bright. So we have 13.4. I'm going to leave it there. Let's see if we have another 13 range or 12.9 or 13.5. I want to, oh boy, that was right on the money. Another 13.4. One more time. Why do I do it 3-4 times? Because sometimes the light at the panel acts strange because it's electricity. It'll vary and it'll drop in voltage, so it means your ADU mean value will go down. Look, another 13.4. This is excellent. Back to the sequencer. We did 30 frames of 18, what's it? FLT 18.5. Now I turned it off. You could delete this, but leave it on. Now we have, this is on now. 30 frames, again 2 seconds. They are flats, but now we're going to change this because you don't want this to be 18. And I bet you're already reading my mind. It's going to be 13.4, I guess. All right. So, will it make another directory? I don't know. You can. For example, if I right-click here and I say rename this, and I go forward and I say, let's say 18.4K. Oh, sorry, it's 5, but I put 4. I'm a little bit tired. Got back from the hospital today. Okay, so we know these are 18.5. But while you're here, inside Andy's tests, inside Nina's the master folder. I mean, your lights are going to be there, your darks are going to be there, your whatever. I'll work you through that when you get your first galaxy or your first nebula. Make another folder. I mean, you're here, right? So FLT again. Show you a little trick. Little space. We'll say, let's say 13.4K. That's 13,400. So K. All right. So we leave it there. So we've made a directory. Let's go fetch that under options, image, file, path, all the way over here to Andy. Bring that up. Go to Andy. Little arrow here. Andy. 13,400. Select that. Because now it's going to put them in there and it will not mix them with the other ones that are 18,500. Simple, easy, makes sense, logical, right? You don't want them in the same directory. Because you could, but then you won't know if they're 18 or 13. Why? Because I don't think it puts an ADU number. Like, here's 18.5, right? Does it say 18,000 here anywhere? No, only the fact that I wrote it in. FLT flats, 18,500. Let me double click on this. I have a program. This is attached. It's the mother program to the child relationship. It's just a bunch of Windows 10 lingo. Let me double click on this. This is called the file FITS header viewer or FITS file viewer. So any FITS you have and you don't like, sometimes OrphanView will not open them. Doesn't matter how much you cry. It's not designed for that. Sometimes it's nice to have a FITS viewer And I believe this is designed by ZWO. It's on their website. So let's look at the histogram. There you go. This is a histogram of this. And it says here that the maximum is 28,000, the minimum was 21,000, and the average is 16. And as you can tell here, the hoop is about 35, almost 40%. This is the representation of our shot. Now remember there were 18.5 and here it says 16.4. Doesn't matter as long as they're all 18.4. This is just an average. And the standard deviation, I don't know, I mean 6,400, 6,100, doesn't matter. So it maxes out at 28. It minimizes at 16 and the average is 21. Something like that. So this just to show that you can use this. You can also turn it black and white, which shows you absolutely nothing. But you can hit the debar button and it'll make them in color. There you go. And you can zoom in and out. Zoom in and zoom out. Okay, so back. So we've got 13.4s. Over here we have 13.4. You can see it here. This is our nice histogram. Based on 2 seconds at gain 101. Go to your sequencer. Make sure that it's turned on because you click and you said add me another run of 30 frames, 2 seconds, they're flats, and binning one by one. You'll notice the gain was automatically added, 101 and 20 offset. It's great. Back to image, go down to image and hit start. And because we went to options and we said go to FLK 13.4, that's where it'll go. But don't forget this. See this up here? If you don't change the 13.4, you end up with 2 sets of 18. That's not good. I'm going to just change the screen for a second. Oh, that's funky. By the way, you can choose any color you want. It doesn't affect your eyes. I have it in Persian right now, but you can have whatever you want. There's like 30 colors in here. Okay, back to green because it's a little bit easier on my eye, and this video is shot in green. Okay, so there's a choice. This big button down here, start sequence, or imaging. Down here again, start sequence. So go. And it'll take a 2-second shot, send it to that folder, make another 2-second shot, and where's your estimated finish? See, active sequence details, 3 of 30, 4 of 30, 5 of 30, and it takes about a minute or so. Let's go to 13.4. Okay, 13.4 is a folder called flats. Let's open that folder, and there they are. 30 beautiful flats at 13.4. Excellent. Let's keep going. Here's 11 of 30. 12 of 30. And then there was I was going to show you how to make darks and flat darks. So flat darks, we're going to have to do them. Boy, oh boy, I'm pretty sure I'm over an hour now. And I want to keep all the videos under 1 hour, which is about, oh, I don't know. Hopefully it's not a gig. Even 1 gig is not too bad, but 600 or 700 meg. So that you don't have too much of a big file and not too much information. This was image information overflow. So tomorrow night, all goes well. We'll set up the whole thing. And here's the thing about dark flats. We're almost done, right? 26 of 30. Go back to the sequencer. When we choose the next set here, dark flats, you don't worry about the ADU. Why? Because they're going to be dark. We're going to shut the light off. We're going to shut the light off, and then we're going to just get the bias voltage. So dark flats are about, anywhere from 800, just 800 ADU. It should be black. They're not called dark flats for nothing. The dark flats are just, all you want to do with dark flats is pick up there's a word for that, noise, fixed pattern noise. So it would be like FPN. Every electronic device has fixed pattern noise in the chip itself, and you want to take that out. Okay, you want to subtract that from a real flat. Your flats are white and dark flats are dark. But electrically, if you want to remove the noise from one to the other, you need both. In the old days, you chose bias frames because they were CCDs. These days, we're not using CCDs, we're using CMOS chips. So, boy, I sure hope my recording is working now, because if not, I talk for an hour for nothing, and there's no way I'm going to remember all this. So this better work. All right. So we're all done? Yes, 30 of 30. Let's go here. We've got, it says down here at the bottom, 30 items. Let's open one up at 13.4. Of course, it won't be 13.4. It'll be something else. Click on the little hover here, show image histogram. Yep. So what do we got? We have a max of 19. We have a minimum of 15. We have an average of 11. And we were shooting for about 13. So anywhere between 15 and 11 is 13. Again, this is not a perfect representation of the flat, but the maximum and minimums are there, and the average is 11. It's actually a little bit more. If you move this, watch what happens to the image. Okay, you start to darken it just by playing with these things down here. Basically, I'm just playing with the histogram and I'm changing it. You can make it really, really bright. Now you're not affecting the image. It's just if you do it right, you get to see your donuts. If you don't get it right, then you won't see them at all. And auto makes it so you can actually see the vignette, which is on the outer edge, and is there two here at least? Yeah, one here and one here. All right, we'll track that down for you. It's called what? ASI Fits View, version 1.54. Okay, so we're gonna go back again. So we have two sets of flats. Okay, this says flats. Okay, FLT flats doesn't matter. So we have two sets. Hopefully one of those two will work really good and take the motes off of our camera. And later on, I have a whole set of lights, darks, flats, and flat darks. I'm going to go through APP and create a whatever 45-minute videos to show you exactly how to put all your data in there. It's what you've been waiting for, right? Calibration. And the result would be whatever the result is, and I'll walk you through what I have to do and what I usually do to get really good images. So let's minimize that. Let's go back to sequencer since these are all done. And if you leave this on, if you leave it on because you want to use it again, because I'm how I know I am over an hour now, it's just hit the back and forth, reset progress of selected row in sequence list. Boom. See how it went back to 0 of 30? Great. 30 is okay. 2 seconds fine. But this has to change now to what? Dark flats. So here, it doesn't matter about the K, the 13K, the 18K, because it's going to be a black frame. And black frames, well, remember, your light panel's still on. Your t-shirts are still on. But we're done with flats. So I go over here, and I just switch. Boom. Now my telescope is in the dark. You can put the cap on if you want. But these are not FLTs. Okay? They're DFs, if you want to put DFL. Those are dark flats, and here it says dark flat. Let's go test one dark flat, because we're not going to do it tonight. I'm just going to be 3 hours. You don't have 4 gig to download. We take your internet 12 hours. Remember, we stay at 2 seconds and gain 101. Now we're going to hit this, and this we can go to ADU if you want, but let's first just look at the image. What does a turned off panel frame look like? Well, boom. Let's have a look. 2 seconds. Voila. There's nothing here. Vignette's gone. Donuts are gone. Why? Because there's no light being transferred to the sensor. It's all black, almost like a dark frame. But it's a 2-second dark that the flats need. So we call them dark flats. And you talk about fixed pattern noise? Well, I don't know about you there, but do you see all these lines? Those are electric lines, electrical source, fixed pattern noise inside the chip transistors or photon collectors or pixels, if you want to call them. And you need to remove that. You need to remove those lines out of these images, these flat frames. So when you're doing that, when you're doing this, you collect. This is good to have more than 30 because they're so, they're 2 seconds long. And if you're going to do 30 flats, it's not bad to have 50 dark flats. Light frames, as many as you can until the sun comes up, to be reasonable. Okay, so let's take one more shot. See what the mean value is now 987. It's not even 1,000. Well, it can't be 1,000. Why? Because there's no light. It's black, black, black. So I'm expecting it can't be 0. Well, why can't it be 0? Because this is electrical. It's got a little bit of analog to digital units. Well, yeah, it has 797. Let's take another shot. Let's see if the mean value changes with the telescope completely dark and the cap on and everything's covered up. No, 797. Let's try a third one. See what it says under mean value. 797. Very, very, the sensor of the 533 is very precise. It's very accurate. It's consistent, which is really important, and I love it. Look at your bar. Look at your histogram, which is glued on the left-hand side. Well, it should be because this tells you how much light is coming in, and there's 0. So the bottom is clipping like crazy, and the top is 797. So we're not going to run it now. I'm over an hour. But tomorrow night we'll do dark flats. And again, what are we going to take our camera on? Well, we're going to leave it at -5. We're going to bring it down to -5. We're running at 58%. We're going to do -5, 2 seconds, gain at 101 with binning at 101, binning 1 by 1 per pixel, and in the sequencer, we're going to make sure we choose dark flats 1 by 1, and the offset's 20, and the gain's 100 plus 1, 101. And we're not going to do 30. Okay, you want lots of dark flats. Why not remove more noise? 50, let's say, of 2 seconds. And then we'll hit start. As long as this has been reset to 0, we're fine. In fact, if I highlight this one and say we don't need you anymore, well, go to the negative sign. I've got one here somewhere. Dare delete that, or do I have to turn it on to delete it? Oh, the little garbage can. Remove the selected row. There we go. So dark flats. We'll do all that, and of course DFL, dark flats. You don't have to put any values up there because we know they're dark flats. In fact, it's going to do another folder here under Andy, and this time it'll be called dark flats, and they're all going to be in there, all 50 of them. But it's important to put a name here. If you put nothing, well, you're not going to know if they're dark flats, or lights, or bias for that matter, which we don't use. But put something up here. If you're making darks, I put in, like, I'm going to talk all night here. DRK means dark. But guess what? As soon as you go down the path here and you the drop down menu, you say dark, the dark will automatically be added automatically in here, and it'll be called dark. It'll also be called dark flats. It's just simplification. What am I doing? Where am I going? Where am I looking for my stuff? Because I don't want to look all over the computer. One folder inside Nina. Normally, if there's a target, like let's say this says the Dumbbell Nebula, well, guess what? There's going to be a folder called Dumbbell Nebula with a bunch of light frames in them. So that concludes part 2, really, because part 1 was setting up your light panel. This part 2 is using your light panels to make flats using the histogram, the ADU mean value, and the exposure time. Don't touch the gain, don't touch the offset. So it's either 1 second, 2 seconds. You can go 3 seconds, but don't change it. If it's 2 seconds for flat, it's also 2 seconds for dark flats, which this time, of course, you shut the power off and shut the light off and cover it up, because dark flats really have to be dark. You don't want any lights creeping into your telescope or creeping around on the bottom where the focuser is. Right now I'm at night. I'm in my living room. Everything's turned off. The curtains are closed. So 797. If I'll take one more last shot before I shut this video off. Let's see if it moved at all. Nope. 797.68. Okay, now you're not done. I'm done. We're not done. Why aren't we done? Because now you need to warm up the camera. You can't just shut it off. See it here says disconnect? No. Now we're going to make it we're going to warm it up. Well, what's a good temperature so it doesn't break? Let's say 20 Celsius in the house is pretty good. If you're outside, you can go plus 10. Right now it's plus 20. You don't want the temperature of the room. You want to bring it back up to fairly warm room. Now this time it's warming. We don't hit the frost here. We don't hit the snowflake. We're going to hit the flame. How fast do you want to warm up that camera? Not too fast. You might cause frost on the front cover. So again, 3-4 minutes. Fire it up, and now she'll start warming up. The degrees on the cooler will start coming down. Why? Because you're not using power. You're just letting the chip warm up. And this -5 is going to go -3, -2, 0, +1, +2, all the way to +20. Then you can power off. So I'm going to give it a few seconds. While this is running, I'm going to bring up my software that starts and stops my recording. Okay. Make sure everything's running. So it looks like we're still running. And then just have to shut off the stop recording and save. So I'm just going to minimize that. All right. So how are we doing? We're doing that. It's shooting for 0, but it's at -4. So it'll start to warm up. And we were at 54. We're down to 53%. If you look at the graph, you can see that the cooler power is starting to drop off. The temperature of the sensor, which was -5, should start to warm up and go up to, I don't know why they have the settings so far, like 20, 40, 60, 80. Who has it at 80 degrees? Hey, you know what? In the United States, in Tampa, sometimes outside it's 90 degrees at night, really hot, and the camera is having trouble. If you set this at -10, I'll guarantee your cooler power from your 12-volt 5-amp charger power supply will run up to 80, 85 to 90%. Why? It's trying to hold -10. It's too hot outside. Not good. But they're designed to go to -25. I'll never do that. I don't want to break it. So I'm happy with -10. In the winter, oh my goodness, you can just put it at 0 and run it at 0, and it's -12 outside, which I don't really like doing that with my gear because it's hard on my gear, my tripod because it's hard on the gears. You know, I'm talking about really, really cold here. And another thing with cold weather is if you're up out all night and it's -5 or 10, those USB cables are stiff like you wouldn't believe, and that can't be good. You know, the telescope's moving slowly and those cables are bending and it's cold out. So I'm careful when I go outside in the winter. I'm always outside in the winter. Some of the best targets start from November, December till March. You know, Orion, Horsehead, the Rosetta Nebula, the Cone Nebula, and it goes on and on and on. You know, there's 110 MESI objects and 7,000 NGC objects. So we're careful. Make sure our wires are, you know, they're comfortably set. Look at the cooler power. Oh my goodness, it's just dropping off on the curve like crazy. It's down to 25%. We've already warmed up to 2.6 from -5. Love the camera. It's a great camera. We're almost done. It took me like half an hour to set up, so I have to count. I'm going to count all that time. You said time is time, and you know, if I'm not sitting on the couch watching TV, I'm here spending 2.5 hours here. But this is going to pay off. I mean, you don't realize what's involved in all this. And if you had nobody explaining this and you're just watching videos online, and you can, I'm not saying there's no videos out there, but I don't think they're going to be specific to answer your questions. And I'm glad I can answer your questions. I just want you to be, first of all, from my point of view as a teacher, I need to get the point across. 2, it has to be simple. This isn't simple, but I want you, it has to be simplified so that when you're out there, you're not, you know, throwing stuff on the ground because you're fed up. That's what I mean by simplify. Simple. It has to be fun. Okay, number 3, fun. Fun, simple, easy to do, easy to understand. Practice. Questions are answered. And then it's a matter of trying it, you know. Try. And if it doesn't work, we try something else. You know, we just keep going at it. While this is running, because I don't want to waste time, I'll keep adding some notes. We're already at plus 11. When you go from your 533 to your planetary camera, the ASI 224, there's going to be a huge change in focus, and that's going to be a problem if you're using an autofocuser. I don't mean a problem. I'll tell you what I mean by that. Is if you've got the Sesto Cento on there, you might not be able to rack out all the way. Like, you're going to be racking out all the way and the planet's still not sharp, or the moon is still not in focus. It's a big white blob. This is why when you open up your TPO, you'll find 4 huge extra rings. It's like 4 inches. It pushes the focuser even farther out away from the back. That's one way to find your focus, and I try to do it during the daytime. I don't wait till nighttime. It's too frustrating. You know, I shoot out the window down the street and go, okay, well, if I can see a building or a house or a telephone pole, I'm good. So the idea here is if that's frustrating, and it is frustrating because you got to take them off because you want to do deep sky objects imaging, and then you put the rings all back on to push the focuser way out. Why? Because you want to do Jupiter and Saturn and the moon. It's frustrating. Now, I left the 533 on and I shot the moon. You might say, well, hold on, you were shooting the moon and you didn't change anything. No, because I wasn't using my guider camera. That's the one I do use for planets, but I wasn't shooting planets. I didn't have to add. So what I did a while back is I brought 2 extension tubes, like they're 2 inches around. They're also 2 inches long. This way, all I got to do is take the camera out with the reducer. Remember you were asking the question about the reducer? I take that out, the whole thing out. I put those extension tubes, and I use my nose cone that I had on the 533. It's nice to have 2 of them because you don't want to start taking your 533 apart, and what happens? Well, now there's dust all over the place, and now your dust bunnies are worse. And I need to let you know way ahead of time. It's not time to know that when you're in the middle of somewhere. So what's happening here? How come there wasn't that much dirt last week and now it's horrible? It happens. I have people that have 30, 40 donuts. The image is horrible. They don't look after the stuff. They don't clean it. And they take it apart, put it in a Ziploc bag real quick. Don't let any dust or dirt. Listen, there's dust in the air we don't even see. Outside, inside, bathroom. Sometimes I do stuff in the bathroom because it's really, really dark and I can close the door and just do darks there for like 4 or 5 hours. I mean, I used to shoot 5-minute frames. Imagine 5 minutes and I need, I don't know, 50 of them? That's 3-4 hours of just doing darks and nothing else at -5 or -10, depending on what I'm doing. So keep that in mind. So when it does come time to switch out the 533 and through in the 224, I'm sure you'll have questions. And usually the first question is, Yo, how come I can't focus anymore? Everything's blurry. Then you're going to have to find your focus point and remember how many extension tubes you put in, how far out the sesto cento was, because technically you don't want that thing racking all the way out and forcing the motor. You don't want to rack it all the way in and force the motor. Those are the things I haven't taught you yet. A lot of people break gear because they don't ask and they experiment, and the experiment went bad. And I'm done. That's like an hour and a half here. Okay, and now look what it says. Plus 21, disconnect. Are you sure? Yes. All right, there's nothing else. If I was connected to my Celestron, I would say disconnect, but it's not connected. If I was in the Guider PhD2, I'd say disconnect. If I had my weather thing on, which I don't, but I don't know if it's programmed. Let's see if I go to Open Weather and connect. Okay, you have not set your IP key. Okay, so I didn't. So it's turned off. That's about it. So camera, focuser, telescope, Guider, and if you have a special API key from your weather network, you can throw it in there. I'm done. So now I have to carefully not delete this whole 1 hour and 20-minute file and stop recording before I lose it. Okay, so I'll maybe I'll talk to you tomorrow and we'll go through dark flats and possibly some darks, because eventually this all leads to making light frames. Hope this helped. I don't know what else to say. I said a lot. Man, you can say a lot in an hour and a half. My goodness. So I'm going to stop it here. This is, the second part, like part 1, part 2. Part 3 will be dark flats and darks. More breaking down of what, where, how, why, and when. Okay? Have fun. I'm going to try to save this now. Have a good night.